Hello and welcome to the 5 Minute Film Club. Casino Royale is a 1967 comedy. Starring, and are you ready for this? David Niven, Peter Sellers, Ursula Andress, Woody Allen, Barbara Boucher, Deborah Kerr, Terence Cooper and Orson Welles. There's also appearances from William Holden, George Raft, Bernard Cribbins, Ronnie Corbett, Derek Nimmo, Richard Wattis and John Le Mesurier. That's enough. But unfortunately it's not enough for this film, because it's also directed by Val Guest, Ken Hughes, Robert Parrish, Joseph McGrath and the one and only John Huston, who also stars in the film as M. The film sees David Niven play the original Sir James Bond, being brought out of retirement to help the world's spy network investigate why so many international spies have gone missing or died. To confuse whoever is behind this plot, every spy in GCHQ is renamed James Bond. Now, the story for why we have this version of Casino Royale happening in 1967 actually goes back a decade before to 1955, when Ian Fleming, in one of his many attempts to get James Bond onto the big screen, sold the rights for his first James Bond novel, Casino Royale, to producer Gregory Ratoff. Unfortunately, Ratoff's version of Casino Royale never made it to the big screen, and he died in 1960. At which point, his agent, Charles K. Feldman, a high-powered man in Hollywood, having produced Orson Welles' Macbeth, A Streetcar Named Desire, and The 7-Year Itch, bought the rights to Casino Royale from Ratoff's widow. He wanted to capitalise on the success of James Bond, and initially wanted to partner with Saltzman and Broccoli to make this an official James Bond production, but they couldn't agree terms. Instead of trying to compete with Sean Connery's Bond, Feldman decided to go the comedy route. He assembled an incredible set of directors and actors, each to create a series of mini-adventures for various characters called James Bond. However, instead of making this an anthology comedy film, he wanted to make it all into one story. That would have been wonderful had they actually managed to nail down the story before this thing started shooting. David Niven as Sir James Bond is the perfect casting, as the antithesis of the Sean Connery version of the character. He abstains from most of the pleasures of life and is constantly batting off female attention. He was a good friend of Ian Fleming, and indeed was Fleming's first choice for the role way back in the early 50s. Niven is also very adept at comedy, and doesn't have any problem poking fun at himself. Niven for me is the strongest component in the film, and actually works with what this film is trying to do, rather than letting his ego get in the way and make something different. Unfortunately, people's egos got in the way filming every other segment of this film. Peter Sellers was a big name, however he wasn't in a good place coming into filming Casino Royale. He immediately bumped heads with absolutely everybody. He wanted to play this film straight and kept pushing back any attempts to make it a comedy, which is a problem if everyone around you is trying to make a comedy. He didn't get on with Orson Welles, who in my mind would have made a perfect Bond villain to go up against the real James Bond. Orson Welles called Peter Sellers an amateur, and he thought it was below him to act opposite somebody like Sellers. Obviously Sellers didn't appreciate this, and the two then refused to act in the same scenes together. This further elongated the shooting process, delaying all the other segments, and eventually Sellers stopped coming to work. There are various stories for the reason behind this, but ultimately his leaving the film left vast swathes of the story unfinished. While this was all going on, several of the other directors started leaving the picture before they'd finished their segments, as they'd filmed for their allotted time, and so Val Guest was asked by Feldman to basically pick up all the pieces and film anything he needed to get this film finished. He was offered a special credit for coordinating director, but wisely turned it down, as he knew that when it was finally shown to people, they would wonder if any coordination had actually taken place. Now, I've seen this film a couple of times now, and both of them have been painful experiences. There are moments where the film works as a psychedelic comedy, particularly in the Berlin sequences by Ken Hughes, who would later go on to direct Chitty Chitty Bang Bang for Broccoli in 1968. I love the colours and energy of these scenes, and the nods towards German expressionist cinema, with the sets looking like something from Dr. Caligari. Also, I'm a big fan of early Woody Allen comedies, like Sleeper and Bananas, and his performance performance as Sir James Bond's nephew, Jimmy Bond, gets the most laughs out of me. I'm sure he must have written most of his dialogue for these scenes, as they just feel like an outtake from a Woody Allen film. And for the bits that he's in, Peter Sellers is good, and part of me wishes that this had just been a vehicle for him to play it straight and have a different, less zany comedy film as a result. There are very small elements of this film that work, but unfortunately by the end of it I just felt so bored. Audiences at the time, however, lapped this thing up, but that might have been more to do with the fact that audiences wanted more James Bond, full stop. Thunderball had and still retains the box office crown for the most money taken for a James Bond film. And You Only Live Twice was a mere 2 months away when Casino Royale opened in 1967. So it is conceivably possible that audiences went to see Casino Royale thinking it was the next official James Bond film. I'm not sure whether I entirely buy this idea. I don't think audiences were that stupid in 1960, but I think that cast, on paper at least, is amazing. Big budget, zany comedies were everywhere at this time. And I think if I'd been around and had seen this cast, I would have gone and seen it. I think the response to this film did actually, temporarily anyway, hurt the official line of James Bond films. Thank you very much for watching my review of Casino Royale, and next week I'm on firmer ground in Japan, reviewing You Only Live Twice, which was Sean Connery's 5th and last outing as James Bond. Sorry? Not last. Sorry. His penultimate outing as James Bond. What? Not penultimate. I can see the James Bond series is going to get a little bit complicated from here on in. But anyway, I'll see you next Friday for my review of You Only Live Twice. Goodbye!